Chapter 1. The Precise Moment. London, June 22nd, 1995. At first, it was a day like any other. Katy got up, showered, had breakfast with Paul, listened to the news. Then she got her things, kissed Paul goodbye, and left the house. She walked down the road to the underground station. She got on the train and travelled to London Bridge. Then she walked from there to the building where she worked, the offices of the Daily Witness newspaper. For the first 3 hours after she arrived, she sat in front of her computer, phoning her contacts and typing out what they told her. As usual, Katy was writing for the newspaper's younger readers. That was her job. She wrote youth-focused features. Her phone rang, and that's when Katy's life started to change. At that precise moment, Katy picked the receiver up. The editor wanted to see her. Now Katy made a face at Benjamin, her best friend at work who sat at the next desk, and got up. "Where are you off to?" he asked. "What's the matter?" "Jones," Katy said. "She wants to see me." "Oh dear, have you done something wrong?" asked Benjamin. "I don't think so," she replied, but she was suddenly nervous. Carol Jones, the editor of the newspaper, could be very nice if she thought you were doing a good job, but she shouted at people when things weren't going well, and nobody liked that. Katy knocked on the editor's door. "Come in," a voice said sharply. She turned the handle. Her throat was dry. She noticed that her hand was shaking slightly. She opened the door. When Katy entered the room, Carol Jones was just getting up from behind her desk. She was a small, slim woman of about 50 years old. She had short hair and designer glasses. "Ah, hello, Katy," the editor said. "Come in and sit down." She walked over and took Katy by the arm, leading her towards a large black sofa. She sat down and Katy sat down next to her, feeling uncomfortable. The phone rang. Carol Jones jumped up and went to the door. Opening it, she called out, "I said no calls at all. You know what that means? It means no calls." Her voice had a surprising strength for someone of her size. She closed the door sharply and came back to the sofa. The phone stopped ringing. Katy was looking round the walls. On the few occasions she'd been in the room, she'd always enjoyed the photos of Carol Jones with the Queen, Carol Jones with the Prime Minister, and a more recent one of her standing between the actors Tom Hanks and Morgan Freeman at the Oscars ceremony in Hollywood before they knew which of them had got the prize. "Do you like your job on the Daily Witness, Katy?" the editor asked. It wasn't the question Katy had been expecting. "Well, yes," Katy replied nervously. "Good. I'm glad. I like your work." "You do?" Katy asked. "Yes, of course. I hired you to attract younger readers, and you seem to be doing just that. Our market research shows that our fastest growth in readers is among the 16 to 25 age group, and some of that, not all of it, but a lot of it, is due to the writing you've been doing. I particularly liked your piece on the digital future and what it's going to mean for the way in which people will communicate with each other, this World Wide Web we're learning to live with." "Thanks. Thanks very much," Katy said. "I think—" "Yes, well, we can worry about all that another day," the editor interrupted, coming back to the present. "I've asked you to come and see me for a different reason. I don't have much time, so I'll come straight to the point. I've got a suggestion, one that will involve big changes for you. but I think you're ready for them. Would you like to hear about it?" After Katy had left Carol Jones's office, the one thing she needed was to talk to Paul. Carol Jones had suggested it. "I know this is a big decision," she'd said, "so why not take a day to think about it? You can go home now and talk to your boyfriend if you want, but I'll need to know your answer by 5 o'clock tomorrow, all right?" 45 minutes later, Katy let herself into the little house that she shared with Paul. She was about to call out his name, but something stopped her. She went into the kitchen. The house seemed very quiet, but it didn't feel empty. There were 2 wine glasses on the kitchen table. Katy stared at them. There was something wrong with that. She stood there looking at them. She knew that they meant something, but she couldn't think what it was. Her brain seemed to have stopped working. But in the end, she walked out of the kitchen, back down the passage, until she came to the stairs. Katy removed her shoes. She climbed the stairs one by one. All the time, the silence in the house was getting louder and louder. At the top of the stairs, she paused, her heart beating wildly. "I must be brave," she told herself, and walked towards the bedroom. The first thing she saw was Paul's t-shirt on the floor by the door. Next, a pair of women's shoes, black with heels. As she came round the door, she saw a pair of jeans untidy on the floor, a skirt, boxer shorts, underwear, clothes. Clothes everywhere telling the story from beginning to end. She raised her eyes. They were asleep, exhausted, his beautiful body and a woman's. My God, the neighbor! She hadn't expected the neighbor. She stood there in shock, looking down at them, studying the woman's blonde hair, her arm thrown over Paul's chest, the rise and fall of her breathing. Paul's subconscious mind must have sensed that something in the atmosphere was different, even though he was sleeping. He opened his eyes just a little. Then he closed them again while his mind thought about what he'd seen. And then, suddenly, he was awake, pulling the sheet over him before sitting up, his mouth falling open in surprise. "Katy, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be at work," he said. "I came home early," Katy said quietly. "Yeah. Look, I'm sorry, I didn't expect. This isn't... I mean..." Paul started. The neighbor had woken up now, wide-eyed and afraid. "Oh, Katy," she said. "I'm sorry, honestly. This isn't what it looks like." "It looks like sex," Katy snapped back, brutal. "Katy!" Paul mumbled. "What are you doing with her?" she shouted at him. Paul looked uncomfortable, ashamed. Katy marched over to the bed and pulled the sheet away. "You!" she commanded, pointing at the neighbor, frightening herself and the other two by her unexpected anger. "Get out of my house right now! Go on! Get out!" And then, before the woman could start dressing, Katy had stormed out, down the stairs, trying to stop herself from crying. She slammed the door loudly behind her as she marched out into the street. She went into the phone box on the corner and dialed a number. "Hello," said the voice in her ear. "Mum?" "It's me, Katy," she said, trying not to sound hysterical. "What is it this time?" her mother said in her usual "I told you so" voice. "Can I come and stay for a few days?" Chapter 2. Benjamin. As she travelled from her mother's house to the offices of the Daily Witness the next day, Katy tried to concentrate, but it wasn't easy. She'd been crying a lot, and she'd hardly slept. It had taken a long time in front of the mirror when she'd got up to do something about her face. Her mind kept jumping from the scene in Carol Jones's office to the horror of what she'd seen in her house. and back again. Her whole life seemed to hang in the balance. Doors opening, doors closing. What was she going to do about Paul, if there was anything she could do? What was she going to do about her editor's suggestion? Carol Jones had asked Katy to go to Sarajevo. The suggestion had taken Katy's breath away at first, and she'd said nothing. Sarajevo was a city under siege, in the middle of the chaos that had overtaken the country everyone used to know as Yugoslavia. Like anyone who watched the news, Katy had been horrified by the scenes of destruction and human suffering from Sarajevo that she'd seen on her television screen. "That's quite a suggestion," were the first words she'd said to her editor. "But why Sarajevo? Why me? Why Sarajevo?" Well, because what's happening there is one of the most important stories of our time. We all know what's going on, but nobody's doing anything about it, even though it's a humanitarian disaster. It feels to me as if people are switching off. I mean in their minds as well as turning off their televisions. Someone actually said to me at a dinner party 2 days ago that he couldn't take any more of it. He said that the scenes on TV had stopped meaning anything anymore. He was suffering from war fatigue, he said. But that shouldn't be happening. And perhaps we in the newspaper business can stop it happening. I need someone who can write about what's happening in Sarajevo so that our readers can experience it in a completely different way. But the Daily Witness has got war reporters. Ed Jonas is there. He's much more experienced than me. Perhaps. But Ed Jonas is coming home, so I need someone else to go out anyway. I've been thinking about who that should be. Why me? You asked. Well, I want more of our younger readers to take an interest. You just might be the person to make that happen. I don't want the usual articles, you see. I want something personal. I want someone to write about what it's really like to be there. So now, as she walked from the underground station to the building where the Daily Witness had its offices, Katy had to decide what to do. If she said yes, it would be like running away, an instant reaction to having found her boyfriend in bed with another woman. But if she said no, she might be missing a great opportunity. But then again, did she really want to go into the middle of a war? She sat at her computer and tried to think, but she found working impossible. Her mind was full of pictures. Paul and that woman, the images of Sarajevo that she'd seen on TV. Carol Jones talking to her in her office. So when Benjamin came into work about an hour later, he took one look at her and marched her to the lift, holding tightly onto her arm. "What's the matter, Katy?" he asked a few minutes later. They were sitting at a table in the Daily Witness Cafe on the roof of the building. From here you could see all over London. "Do you really want to know?" Katy asked. "Yes, of course I do," Benjamin said. So she told him everything, about Paul and about Carol Jones's suggestion. He was silent for quite a long time. "Well," said Katy when the silence had gone on for long enough, "aren't you going to say something?" "Are you okay?" Benjamin said. "Of course I'm not," Katy replied. "How would you feel if you found your boyfriend, well, your girlfriend, obviously." Okay, sorry, that was a stupid question. It's just that," he started. "It's going to be awful at my mum's," Katy said, trying to change the subject. "Why? Don't you get on with her?" Benjamin asked. She'd liked Benjamin from her first day at the Daily Witness. He was the one person she could really talk to at work. "Haven't I told you the story?" Katy asked. I'm not sure. You tell me lots of stories. I can't remember. He was blonde, about 35, and much taller than she was. We haven't really got on since my dad left when I was 8. It's not that she blamed me or anything, but she was so angry, so upset when he walked out that she just went crazy. She used to shout at me all the time, about nothing. At least that's what I remember from my childhood. She didn't give my brother a hard time in the same way. And we never got on after that. When I was a teenager, it got even worse. I don't think I was much fun to be with, and neither was she. After I finished school, I left home as fast as I could. What does she think of Paul, of what's happened? Asked Benjamin. You can imagine. When I got to her house yesterday, it only took her half an hour to say, I told you what would happen. And once she'd started, there was no stopping her. I knew he was no good. I told you never to trust a musician. My father was a musician, you see. But you didn't listen to me, did you? You had to go and live with him without being married. Well, now look at you. She had the time of her life telling me what a fool I'd been. She didn't even stop when I burst into tears. She's so prejudiced, so old-fashioned. Who cares whether Paul's a musician or the head of the Bank of England? He's a man, that's all. Hey, wait a minute. We're not all the same, her friend protested. Aren't you? Katy teased him. Then, seeing his unhappy face, she said, Sorry, I'm just a bit tired. Poor Katy, said Benjamin. I'm not poor. She was beginning to get annoyed. Ever since she'd left her house for the second time yesterday, her mind had been racing, changing every minute from anger to despair, to excitement, and back to anger again. Sorry, Katy, Benjamin said. I didn't mean... Oh, it's okay, really, it's just... How could she tell him about the mixture of feelings running through her brain? In the end, she just said, Thank you, Benjamin. You're a friend, a good friend. I try to be. Right now I just want to know that you'll be okay, he said. I'll survive. She didn't want him to be too sympathetic. That would make her cry again. Okay, let's change the subject. What are you going to do about Sarajevo? What are you going to say to our editor when you see her this afternoon? Are you going to go or not? I don't know. She was confused about Carol Jones's offer. She was confused about everything right now, it seemed. If she went, what would happen with Paul? Could anything happen with Paul? If she didn't go? Hello, Katy, I'm still here, Benjamin joked, waving his hand in front of her face. What? Oh, sorry, I was miles away. Yes, I know, he said. Do you think if I went, it would be like running away? More like running towards, if you ask me, he replied. Straight into a war. I don't want anything to happen to you, Katy. She knew he liked her, perhaps more than she wanted him to. She'd tried to stop it spoiling their relationship because she wanted to keep him as a friend. You think I should stay? She asked. What I think doesn't matter. You have to make up your own mind, was his immediate answer. Yes, I suppose I do, she said. Later on, she went back to her computer screen, but she couldn't work. She kept thinking about Paul. Was it definitely the end of their relationship? Did she want to try and make it work again? How long had he been seeing the neighbor? Even if he was sorry, really sorry, would she ever trust him again? Questions. Questions going round and round in her head. She wondered how long she could stand living at her mother's. She wondered what it would be like to have a father. a real father, someone she could ask for advice. She started to feel very sorry for herself. Benjamin came over to her desk at 10 minutes to 5. 10 minutes to go, he said. Do you know what you're going to do? I've been thinking, she answered. What about? He asked. Lots of things. My life. That kind of thing. And has it helped? Yes, she said. Yes, I think it has. Well? He asked. I'd better go. Carol Jones will be waiting for me, Katy said simply. Chapter 3. Don't get involved. Hello, are you Katy? A man said as she came out of the arrivals terminal at Belgrade Airport. I'm Ed Jonas. Welcome to the mad world that used to be Yugoslavia. I think I saw you once when I was back in London. He was in his 60s. She remembered the day he'd come into the offices of the Daily Witness. They hadn't talked then, but she'd watched him chatting with her colleagues and laughing with Carol Jones. A newsman through and through, that's what everyone said about him. One of the best. When he offered to take her bags, she refused to let him. She felt a lot stronger than he looked. They got into a taxi. Is this your first foreign job? He asked. Your first war? Yes, Katy said. Well, I'm sure you'll be all right, he replied. But he didn't sound sure at all. Later they went to a restaurant in Skardalia Street, which Ed Jonas said was one of his favourites. Can I ask you a question? She said after they'd ordered their food. Sure. Go ahead, he said. Why are you leaving? Why am I leaving? Well, this is my last night as a war reporter. I'm packing my bags for the last time, so I'll tell you, but no tears and sympathy, okay? He poured her a glass of wine. I promise, she said. Okay. Well, I've got cancer, you see. I only just found out. It's not too advanced, and it's possible that the doctors can get rid of it. But I'm not the healthiest person in the world, as you can see. That's terrible, Katy said. You promised, he replied. Yes. I'm sorry, but why are you still smoking if you're ill? Funny word, isn't it, cancer? Nobody likes saying it. Why am I still smoking, you ask? Because I can't see a reason to stop. If I'm going to die, I might as well die happy. Smoking is one of the few pleasures I have left. Anyway, back home they'll ban it one day. You see if they don't. I'll stop then. He winked at her. Anyway, I've got a wife and 2 grown-up children. None of them likes me very much at the moment. My wife says she wants to divorce me. But in a couple of months, I'm going to be a grandfather for the first time. I think I need to make my peace with all of them. Now seems like a good time to go home in the circumstances. Yes, I can see that, said Katy. Hey, don't look so miserable. You're young and healthy, good-looking too. You've got some young man, I expect, Jonas suggested. No, I don't think I have. She told him about Paul, and in return he told her about his life. Wars in various parts of the world, the friendship of journalists, the cost to his personal life, the history of the Daily Witness. They finished the bottle of wine. When the coffee arrived, their conversation turned naturally to the situation in the country that had once been Yugoslavia. Sometimes what's happened here? He put 2 sugar lumps in his coffee and seemed uncertain about what to say next. Well, it just doesn't seem believable, does it? I mean, we're in what used to be called the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. I know that it was always an impossible kind of federation. I know that. 6 different republics, different religions, different races. But during the communist years, Tito somehow managed to keep it all together. And then when he died in 1980, it all began to fall apart. The Croats and Serbs in Croatia started arguing with each other. The Kosovans tried for independence. The Serbs got upset. And from what I know, it all went really bad when Croatia and Slovenia declared independence in 1991, Katy said, mostly to help him. He was trying to talk but coughing at the same time. Yes, he agreed, clearing his throat noisily. That's when the killing started, and the fighting has been terrible. Then, on top of that, when Bosnia and Herzegovina said it wanted to be independent too, many of the Bosnian Serbs weren't happy, and the Serbs from Serbia weren't happy either. That's when they started trying to cleanse Bosnia and Herzegovina of the Bosniaks, the Bosnian Muslims, and the Croats. They want to kick them out so they can have the place to themselves. The thing I still don't understand, Katy said, drinking her coffee, is why the Bosnians, the non-Serb Bosnians, don't fight back. Well, they try to, but they haven't got the Serbs' weapons, tanks, guns, all that. They're fighting back as fiercely as they can in Sarajevo, but they're in a pretty bad state there. The big debate back in the UK is whether other countries, I mean the USA, Europe, should do something about it. What's your view? What do you think the international community should do? Katy asked him. The international community, Jonas exclaimed with an angry kind of laugh. The international community says, it's a pity, of course, but we aren't going to sell arms to the people who want an independent multi-ethnic Bosnia and Herzegovina. We're not going to sell to the Muslims. It's not our war. It makes me so angry when I think of Sarajevo, of how it used to be. His voice faded. He seemed to be seeing the city he was talking about. Tell me, Katy said, tell me how it used to be. It used to be the most amazing multi-ethnic city you could possibly imagine. Everybody, Serbs, Bosniaks, Croats, Montenegrins, Roma, Jews, everybody, used to live happily side by side. But not anymore. The Serbs are up in the mountains sending shells and bombs into the city. The streets are full of snipers and the place is falling apart. What is it that turns neighbours into killers? How do perfectly decent ordinary people get so crazy? What's going to happen, do you think? Asked Katy. I honestly don't know. If the United Nations was a bit braver or if the Americans got involved, they could stop the killing tomorrow. But after Vietnam, Somalia, Rwanda, all those embarrassments, nobody wants to stick their neck out. Instead, the United Nations sends a peacekeeping force like they always do. But haven't they learnt? You can't keep peace if peace doesn't exist in the first place. So the Serbs will win? They'll get their Greater Serbia? Is that what you think is going to happen? She continued. I don't know. The Bosnians, the multi-ethnic Bosnians, have fought the Serbs on the streets, and there are signs that the international community is getting very fed up. So it's, just possible that they might do something sooner or later. But they'd better hurry up, because most of the people who are trapped in Sarajevo will be killed unless someone comes and stops what's going on. He started to cough again. He looked terrible. Do you mind if we go back now? As they got into the lift at their hotel, Ed Jonas gave her some advice. Out there in Sarajevo, you have to be careful, all right? They don't usually kill journalists, but everybody makes mistakes. And Katy, there are snipers everywhere. Harris will do his best to protect you. He's the driver I always use in Sarajevo, and he'll meet you when you get there. But there are other dangers too. He suddenly looked more serious than at any other time during the evening. The most important thing, young Katy, is don't get involved, okay? Don't get too close. If you stay objective, if you keep your distance, you'll be all right. If only I was 30 years younger. The lift doors opened. "This is my floor," he said. He kissed her good night. She smelt the smoke and wine on his breath. He walked down the corridor without looking back. "Why are you here?" the British soldier asked, looking at Katy in surprise. "Because I'm a journalist, I suppose." She wasn't going to be frightened. She hadn't even got to Sarajevo yet. "Journalists," he muttered. He was sitting opposite her in the army truck as it drove along the empty roads. It was painted white so that everyone would know it was part of the multinational peacekeeping force. There were 3 other soldiers with them, but 2 of them were asleep and the other one wasn't listening. "Do you ever get attacked?" she asked the soldier. "Yeah, often." Was he actually trying to frighten her? He was younger than her, all white skin and orange freckles. Under his helmet he had very short red hair. "A friend of mine got shot in the arm last week. They sent him home. Lucky chap. This is the worst job I've ever had in the army." "Why?" she asked. "Because we can all see what's going on, but we can't do anything about it," he explained. "Why not?" She was interested to see how he would explain their mission. He looked really upset, as if he was going to cry. "Because we're a peacekeeping force, that's why." "Well, isn't that a good thing?" she asked innocently. "It should be. But all it means is that we're not allowed to do anything at all. We just stand around being nice to people, and any soldiers. It doesn't matter where they come from or what they think they're fighting for, can just walk right past us with big grins on their faces on their way to murder a few more innocent civilians and burn down their houses." "It's not that simple, surely," she suggested. "Yes, it is. Right now the Serb soldiers go from village to village, blowing up houses, farms, mosques, anything they feel like. They separate the men and the women, take them away, shoot them, or put them in prison camps, and do all kinds of unspeakable things to them. They say they're cleansing the land of their enemies. Ethnic cleansing, they call it. And the victims can't do anything about it because they haven't got anything to fight back with. And neither can we because our stupid government says we're not allowed to get involved." "Oh, no," he said suddenly. "I forgot. You're a journalist." "It's all right. Don't worry." Katy gave him her sweetest smile and watched him go red. "Even if I write about your feelings, I won't say who you are." They didn't talk after that. The truck roared on through the afternoon. It was raining as they passed through one empty village after another. Most of the houses had no windows or doors. In the beautiful countryside, nothing moved. Chapter 4. From my hotel window, they arrived at an army checkpoint on the edge of Sarajevo, where a group of soldiers was checking anyone who wanted to enter the city. She saw Harris standing behind the soldiers and recognized him immediately from Ed Jonas's description. He was a tall man and rather overweight. He waved at her. Behind her, the white army truck had turned round. She heard the engine roar as it left. It was going to the base of the peacekeeping force 2 kilometers outside the city. A young man with a shaved head and a large gun checked her papers, looking her up and down as he pretended to compare her with a photograph on her press card. Finally, he waved her through. She picked up her bag and the case with her laptop in it. She wished she hadn't packed so much, but when you're going to your first war zone, you don't really know what to take. "You are Katy," Harris announced when she went up to him. "I take your suitcase." He lifted the bag from her hands. "You come with me." He walked off without saying anything more. Katy almost had to run to keep up with him. "Hey, hold on," she gasped. "Number, it is good we go fast," he called back. She wasn't worried about his grammar, but his accent made it difficult for Katy to understand him. She'd have to get used to that. "You are journalist, yes, but the soldiers, they are mad." They rounded a corner. The street was empty. There was a car with no wheels on her left. Harris pointed to an old Ford on her right. It was a dirty white. On the roof, someone had painted "Press" in untidy black letters. "This is my car. You get in," he told her. Moments later, they were bouncing along uneven avenues. Harris didn't just look ahead of him. He kept turning to the right and the left. She watched his eyes. He was looking into the buildings on either side of them. She wished he would keep his eyes on the road. "What are you looking at?" she asked. "I worry about snipers. These guys, they sit here and shoot people," he explained. "What for? Sport? Revenge? Crazy people? I do not know." He shrugged his shoulders. "Are we in danger?" she asked. "Not too much. This is not their usual area, and I have "Press" painted on the car," he said proudly. "Yes, I saw," she said. "I want us to be safe." He smiled at her. "That's good. I'm glad we're safe," she said, but she didn't feel it. "Maybe today it is different," Harris offered, almost enthusiastically. Not a very good beginning, Katy thought. She didn't know whether she was more worried about snipers shooting at her or about Harris's wild driving. "How is my friend?" he suddenly asked. "Sorry," Katy said. "Ed Jonas? How is he?" "I don't think he's very well." "He's a nice man," she found herself saying. "He is my friend. Perhaps I never see him again." Harris lowered his head in sadness. "I'm sure you will." She comforted him, not sure if she believed it. A few minutes later she asked, "Why are you in Sarajevo? Ed said that you're from Montenegro." "Sure, yes. That is my home. But I came here for work 4 years ago, and now—" He shrugged his shoulders and the car swung to the right. "I stay. I do not know why. Perhaps I like the danger. Perhaps I am afraid to go home. But I thought Montenegro was relatively safe. There isn't fighting there, surely," she said. "I have a wife," he said unhappily, "and many children." "Well, then you should go back to them," Katy said. "What do you know about it?" Harris sounded angry or upset. She couldn't tell which. "Sorry, it's just that—" "Well, isn't that what husbands and fathers do?" she asked. "Yes. But I am here because there was not work in Montenegro. And now—" His voice tailed off. They drove on. The only other cars they saw were being driven as crazily as the car she was in. Everyone, Harris explained when she commented on it, was trying not to get shot. 10 minutes later, he pointed through the windscreen. There, he said. That's your hotel. That's where all journalists are. You are all safe there because the Serbs do not shell it. After she'd checked in, Katy went to her room. It was very basic. There was a narrow bed with an old grey blanket. The chair and desk by the window reminded her of her old school. The mirror in the bedroom had a crack in it. The bathroom was old-fashioned. She could see hard water stains on the showerhead and there was no shower curtain. She unpacked her bag and put her clothes into 2 drawers beside the bed. She switched on the light and it worked. Not much electricity in Sarajevo, Ed Jonas had told her. Nothing much works in the city anymore. But your hotel has a petrol-powered generator. It's usually okay. It looked as if he was right. She plugged in her laptop and the battery charger for the satellite phone which Jonas had given her. What I want, Carol Jones had said at their last meeting in the Daily Witness offices, are articles telling us exactly what it's like over there. Remember what I said about our younger readership? The late teenagers, the 20-somethings. They're the people who will read you. The older ones will too, she added quickly when she saw the look on Katy's face. But I want something special from you which the older journalists don't give me. They think too much. They've seen it all before. But you, I just want you, Katy Sullivan, to say what it's like for you to be in Sarajevo, what it's like to be in the middle of a war. All right, Katy thought. If that's what she wants, that's what I'll try and do. She turned on her laptop and selected New Document, but she couldn't think what to write. Perhaps she could talk about the history of the war, or repeat some of Ed Jonas's views. No, that was no good. It wasn't what Carol Jones wanted. She could talk about the soldier in the army vehicle. She could tell the Daily Witness readers what he said about the peacekeeping force. But that wasn't right either. It was someone else's opinion. Her editor wanted her voice, Katy Sullivan's voice, to be heard. She looked out of the window beyond the desk, trying to get some idea of how to start. She typed from my hotel window onto the screen. That's it, she thought to herself. I can tell them what I can see and what I think it means. She began typing, and now the words came easily. From my hotel window. From my hotel window, here in Sarajevo, I can see the hills and mountains which are all around this city. It's evening and the rain has stopped. The setting sun has turned the sky pink. The mountains look magical. Although I haven't been here before, I can understand why people say how beautiful this city used to be. It's not just those mountains. Although being able to see them every day would make anyone feel good, it's the old buildings too, and the parks, and the Miljacka River. In Birmingham or Manchester, concrete tower blocks look ugly, but here, because of where the city is, they could be almost attractive. Sarajevo should be a great place to visit. But everything has changed from the days when people came here for pleasure. Now the hills and mountains are full of soldiers who want to kill people. The old buildings look as if they're falling down, and even from here I can see bullet holes in the walls. The tower blocks have no glass in their windows. They probably have snipers waiting to shoot at you, my new friend Harris says. Smoke is rising from a building on my left as I sit here at my computer. Down below me there's a park in ruins. The trees have no leaves. There is more mud than grass. Everybody says that Sarajevo used to be a nice place to live, with Bosniaks, the Bosnian Muslims, and Serbs and Croats, and anyone else who was around, existing happily side by side for years. They ate in the same restaurants and went to the same cinemas. They watched the same plays and listened to the same concerts. They married each other, went to the same schools, and gave birthday parties for each other's children. Tourists used to come here. Then the war started, and now everything is different. And here I am, a war reporter in my first war. What will I find on these city streets? What's life in war-torn Sarajevo really like? What will happen to the people down there? What will happen to me? I'll let you know. When she'd finished, she read through what she'd written. It looked all right. She saved it and wrote an email to go with it before getting out the satellite phone and plugging it into the laptop. She dialed the number Carol Jones had given her and waited while the connection was made. 30 seconds later, her email and her article had gone to the Daily Witness. She disconnected the phone and switched off the laptop. Time to change and get something to eat. Chapter 5. Colin. The shower was much better than she'd expected. Katy stood there, letting the hot water stream down her body, and decided that she was feeling very positive. Despite the misery she'd felt as her personal life collapsed around her, she'd managed to make 2 big decisions. She'd told Paul that their relationship was definitely over, and she'd agreed to come here. She was doing what she wanted, acting only for herself. It gave her a delicious feeling of independence. Now she'd written her first piece as a war reporter. All this showed, she told herself, that she wasn't just a person that things happened to. She was a person who made things happen. She turned her head up to the water and let it run over her face, smiling to herself. She began to hum a tune. For a second she couldn't think what it was, and then she remembered. It was one of Paul's favourites, an old Bob Marley song, "No Woman, No Cry." Damn. She turned off the shower, reached for a towel and dried herself. When she opened the bathroom door, cold air from the open window hit her and made her shiver. Somewhere in the distance she heard the thump of an explosion, like a short burst of thunder. She remembered where she was. She sat on the end of the small bed wondering what to wear. She was hungry. But eating meant going downstairs, and that meant meeting all the other journalists. What would they think of her, the new girl? Most of them had probably been reporting on this kind of situation for years. Would they laugh at her? Would they be friendly or unkind? She was getting quite cold now, and the damp towel didn't help. She had to decide. In the end, she put on a white shirt, a clean pair of jeans, and her flat-heeled walking shoes. She put a dark blue waistcoat over her shirt. She brushed her hair and put on lipstick and eyeliner. She studied herself in the cracked mirror. Her image came back slightly off-center and unclear, but it was the image she thought was right. Casual but professional, smart and ready. She took the most important things out of her bag and stuffed them into her waistcoat and jeans pockets. Then she turned off the lights and walked out of her room, closing the door behind her. The dining room wasn't very full. Only 4 tables were occupied, each by a single diner. 2 of them were reading books, she noticed, and another, who looked up as she passed, had a newspaper in his hand. She could feel his curious eyes follow her as she found a table near the back. The waitress wore an off-white blouse and an old black skirt. She had tired eyes, and it didn't look as if she'd washed her hair recently. When she came over to Katy's table, she hardly looked at her and took her order without interest. The food, when it came, didn't taste of much. The soup was mostly water, and the meat was too tough to eat. Katy ate 3 pieces of hard bread instead. When she'd finished, she looked around her. A dead silence hung in the air. No one else had come into the room. Anything is better than this, she thought. I'll go and look for the bar, if there is one. There was, and it was full. Before she reached it, she could hear the noise of conversation and smell the cigarette smoke. Now she really would have to face the crowds. She stopped outside the open glass doors. For a minute she felt nervous and wondered whether she should just go back to her room. But she heard the voice of her mother, angry with her as usual, saying, "What's the matter with you, Katy? Can't you face the truth of it?" And that decided her. Taking a deep breath, she went in. The conversation died as she entered and people looked in her direction. As she made her way towards the bar, she knew they were all wondering who she was. There were only 2 or 3 other women in the room. She tried to look cool and unconcerned. At the bar, a man came straight up to her before she could order anything. "Here, can I get you a drink?" he said. "You look like you need one." She looked at him. He was thin and his cheeks were hollow. He had hard blue eyes and thinning hair. He'd been drinking for some time, she suspected. He was probably about 40. "Yes, thanks. That would be nice," she said. "Well?" he asked. "Sorry?" She was trying to take everything in. "What do you want to drink?" he asked. "Can I have a beer? What's the best local beer?" "Local beer? You're joking, of course. Have the imported stuff." He was looking at her with a smile showing in the lines around his eyes. "Okay, thanks." He was tired, she thought. "You're from the Daily Witness, aren't you?" he asked. "Yes." "How did you know?" "I heard the paper was sending out a woman reporter, a young woman reporter. There aren't too many of you here, you know." No, it wasn't that," he joked. "I'm a magician." Katy laughed. The ice had been broken. "Is this your first war?" he asked. "Is it that obvious?" She'd hoped to look more experienced. "Well, yes, I guess it is a bit," he replied. "Everyone has to start somewhere, you know, even you. You were like me once." She picked up her beer. No, I was never really like you." He was laughing. Okay, she agreed. "And yes, this is my first war, as you put it. So what advice have you got for me?" "Advice? Just go out there. Listen, look, watch. Write down what you see. Tell it how it is. That's the job." "You mean be objective?" she asked. "No, I certainly didn't mean that." He looked at her angrily. "But I thought you said—" Katy started. "Listen, look, watch, that's what I said. But I didn't say, be objective." He was beginning to shout. "Okay," she said to calm him down. "I'm sorry. Of all the wars I've been in," he went on, as if she hadn't spoken, "this is the one where it's not possible to be objective. You can't be objective about what's going on here, whatever they all say." He waved his arm, indicating the other people in the room. "What newspaper do you work for?" she asked. I don't. I'm a cameraman, he told her. So if you can't be objective, you must be a subjective cameraman. She couldn't resist making a joke. Now you listen, he said, looking her straight in the eye. You're new here. You're young. That's not your fault. But it is a handicap. He was being very aggressive, Katy thought, but he was speaking with passionate sincerity too. She found it impossible to dislike him completely. Go out there and get some experience, he went on. Talk to people. Find out how they live and die in this dreadful place. Then you can come back to me and we'll talk about being objective and you can make your jokes. Right now it's not worth my time. He got up and walked off. Thanks for the beer, she called after him. He didn't turn back. One of the other women in the room stood up and walked over to her. She was tall and thin with long black hair falling over her shoulders. She was wearing a striped jacket with a tie loosely knotted at her throat. Hi, she said, in lightly accented English. I'm Carla. Hello, I'm Katy. From England? The woman called Carla asked. Yes. You? Katy said. I'm from Italy. From Channel 3 television. Oh, right. How long have you been here? Katy asked. A few months. Listen, don't worry about Colin. Colin? Katy asked. Yes, Colin Northcott, Carla said. The man you were talking to. The best news cameraman in Sarajevo. The best in the business. Well, he used to be anyway. I was watching you two talking. He looked like he was getting angry again. Yes. I think I made him cross, Katy said unhappily. No, you didn't. I mean, I'm sure it wasn't your fault. This war makes him cross, that's all. He's lost the professionalism that made him so good at his job. I'm worried about him. Katy liked Carla's voice. It was warm and friendly. Yes, well, he was pretty rude, Katy laughed. He made me feel really small. I'm just sorry that I got him going. Oh, don't take it personally, Carla said. He's always upset these days. He's made the big mistake, you see. What mistake? Katy asked. He's become involved. That's not a good idea. This is not his war. It's not my war or your war. We just report what we see, but we stay outside it. We can't get too involved. We mustn't get too near. That's more or less what Ed Jonas said, Katy told her new friend. Dear old Ed. It's a pity he's gone home. You don't get too near? Katy asked, still thinking about what the Italian had said to her. Me? Of course not, Carla said. I can't afford it. This is my job. This is how I make my living. Nothing more. Anyway, you want to come over and join us? Katy took her beer and went to sit with Carla and some of the other journalists. At first, they all stared at her, and one or two of them asked her questions. Then they got tired of being curious and settled back into the conversation they'd been having before Carla brought her over. They talked of narrow escapes they'd experienced, of arguments with editors and other journalists, of wives and girlfriends, husbands and young men. Katy listened, occasionally saying something but mostly just trying to learn. Once she saw Colin the cameraman looking into the room again, a strange expression in his eyes. Then he turned and walked over to the hotel entrance and disappeared. Chapter 6. What war does to families. When Katy came down to breakfast the next morning, Carla was already sitting at one of the tables drinking coffee. She looked up as Katy walked in. Hi, she called. Want to join me? Sure. Thanks. Carla looked perfect. Her long black hair beautifully brushed, sunglasses pushed back on her head. So, how are you feeling this morning? Carla asked her. Not too wonderful, actually. They'd stayed up late last night drinking, as everybody's stories got more and more exaggerated, and the laughter got louder and louder. No, me neither. Here, do you want some coffee? Breakfast was better than last night's supper. The coffee was dark and strong. There was bacon and toast. So what do you think of Sarajevo so far? I don't know. I've hardly seen anything yet. But the view from my window is depressing. The park's in ruins, the tower blocks with no glass in the windows. I heard an explosion when I was upstairs yesterday evening. Only one? Carla asked with a smile. Yes. You probably think I'm stupid for mentioning it. Not at all. Carla put her hand on Katy's arm. But after a bit, you get used to it. Harris warned me about the snipers, Katy said. Oh, you've met him? Have you? Yes. He collected me at the checkpoint. Katy told her about Harris's wild driving. Well, he's right about the snipers, Carla said after Katy had finished. They sit in those tall buildings, and when the grandfathers and mothers and brothers and children come out to get water, they shoot them. That's terrible, Katy said. It may be terrible, Katy, but it's war, was her new friend's reply. Sounds more like murder to me, Katy said, shocked at what she'd just heard. War is murder, Carla said. Don't say that in such a cheerful voice. Katy was puzzled by the Italian's attitude. Oh no, you mustn't misunderstand me, Carla replied, as if she'd read Katy's mind. I'm not cheerful about all this, but there's nothing I can do about it. It's just the way it is. The way it is? Yes. War is murder. End of story. Carla's cheerfulness seemed to have disappeared. At least we should be grateful that the Serbs don't come out of the hills and kill everyone in one great attack. That's because of international opinion. Katy wanted to hear what Carla thought. Yes, it's partly that. But they would face serious resistance here too. The Bosnians may not be strong enough to take the battle to the Serbs in the hills, but they'd resist a full attack to the last man and woman. It's much easier for the Serbs to sit up there in the mountains and rain shells down. And the snipers are fairly safe if they're careful. She's very sure of herself, Katy thought, listening to the Italian. Good-looking, elegant, intelligent. I wish I was that sophisticated. How long are you going to stay here? Katy asked. As long as my husband lets me, Carla replied. You're married? Don't sound so surprised. No, well, it's just that... Now Katy felt embarrassed. I'm sorry, you just don't look married, that's all. How do married people look? Oh no, I've done it again, haven't I? Katy bit her lip. Done what? Carla asked. Well, last night I made that Northcott man cross and now I'm saying all the wrong things to you, Katy explained. Look, Katy, I don't know you very well, Carla said, but you know what I think. I think you should relax. And don't worry about me. I don't get upset easily. Anyway, she laughed, I'm pleased. I'd be furious if I really did look married. What does he do, your husband? Oh, he's head of news at Channel 3 in Italy, Carla said. Wow. Yes, Carla agreed. Wow. Everybody thinks I got my job because of him, but I was working at the company before he joined. I remember when he came for his interview. I didn't like him that much. He seemed too sure of himself. But when he started in the newsroom, we got to know each other, and I began to think he was all right. He must have thought I was all right too. Doesn't he worry about you being here? Katy asked. Yes, and I worry about him being there, in Rome, all by himself. That's not good for a handsome man like him. That's why I'm going back. You're leaving Sarajevo? Katy said. Yes, but not immediately. I'll be here for another few weeks, and after that... She smiled. What? Katy asked, noticing her expression. After that what? Oh, you know, Carla said, smiling. A family. You're pregnant? Katy asked. No, not yet. There hasn't been enough time. But we both want children. So, maybe soon. Hey, listen, Carla said, changing the subject. I'm going out with Alberto, my cameraman, to do some interviews this morning. Do you want to come along? Harris is going to drive us. Oh, no! Harris roared as he saw them coming out of the hotel. The two most beautiful women in Sarajevo. Now they are together. I am lost. You will be if you don't look after us properly, Carla joked, walking over to the car without stopping. Come on, she said to Katy. We'll sit in the back and let Alberto die of fright in the front. Alberto was a bit older than Carla. He was bald with round glasses and a grey moustache and beard. After saying hello to Katy and buongiorno to Carla and Harris, he said almost nothing else for the rest of the journey. Harris took them through narrow back streets until they got to the market. Here, Carla interviewed 3 market traders, with Harris acting as an interpreter. The traders talked about how difficult it was to get food into the city. Some of their colleagues, they said, paid huge bribes to Serb soldiers to let food supplies through. Others just waited and waited, hoping that they would get supplies from the United Nations peacekeeping force. Don't you fear you will be attacked? Carla asked one of them, a man of about 60. When Harris translated the question, the man got very angry and waved his arms around wildly. Yes, Harris said to Carla. He is fearing attack all the time, all of the day. He says people is terrified, but they must to eat. He says before the war he had a neighbour, younger than he, a Serb who worked for him. Now same neighbour is a Serb soldier, and he has to pay all his money for getting in food for his customers. He asks, is this what his life is for? Later, while they were drinking coffee in a side street cafe near the market, Harris explained to Carla and Katy more about the lack of food in the city. Most people were going hungry, queuing for hours for bread and paying ridiculous prices for vegetables. But some people had started their own vegetable gardens, Harris told them, in places where the snipers couldn't reach them. And some supplies came through the network of Bosnians and those Serbs, and there were many, who objected to what was being done by their countrymen. They used underground tunnels connecting Sarajevo to the outside world. Katy understood more about food and hunger that afternoon when they went to interview a woman who'd been a teacher at Sarajevo University. She must have once been pretty, but now there were lines of worry across her face and despair in her eyes. Her flat was in a neighborhood that probably used to be pleasant, with children playing in the streets. But the streets were deserted now, full of burnt cars and holes. The teacher's flat was a mess, with children's clothes all over the floor and the furniture. There were unwashed plates in the kitchen. One of her 4 children cried all the time they were there. Another, a little boy, had a dirty bandage over one eye. There was no glass in the windows. But when Carla talked to the woman, some sign of feeling came back into her eyes, and she sat up straighter, as if suddenly her old self had returned. Alberto switched on his camera, and the camera light brightened the untidy sitting room. The former teacher explained how she and her children lived and how she tried to keep her family together. It was a life Katy couldn't even begin to imagine. The woman spoke good English. She'd studied it at university, she told them, and had taken a teacher's course in England just before the war started. She was just like lots of people that Katy knew back home. And yet, surrounded by the chaos in her flat, Katy could think of nothing to say after Carla's interview. She left the apartment feeling inadequate, as if somehow she'd failed. Back in her hotel room that evening, Katy got out her laptop again. It was getting dark outside. Twice she saw flashes from the hills and a few seconds later heard the thump as the shells landed somewhere in the city, far away from the hotel. She switched on the computer, but for a long time she sat there staring blankly out of the darkening window. She thought of the angry market trader. She thought about a mother trying to raise her children in the middle of war. Which should she write about? What was the best way to explain to ordinary people back home what was going on here? How could she interest them as they sat in their trains going to work or fell asleep in their armchairs as they read the paper? She got up, walked around the room, thinking. But when she sat down again, she knew what to write. Today I went to visit Natasa, a mother with 4 young children. She has shoulder-length black hair which is going grey. Her clothes seem old and creased, as if they haven't seen an iron for weeks, maybe years. She used to be an attractive woman, I think, and could still be if things were different. Once, I imagine, she was bright and cheerful, but now she speaks with a heartbreaking despair. Natasa's eldest child is 10 years old and has only one eye. A dirty bandage covers the place where the other eye used to be, but he lost it when a soldier shot him by mistake. Natasa's youngest child, a pretty 5-year-old girl, has a bad ear infection and cries continuously from the pain. She needs medicine, antibiotics. There are no antibiotics in Sarajevo. Natasa's husband, a lawyer, was killed 6 months ago. He didn't have a pension. Natasa has already spent her savings. There's no money in the banks. The banks are closed. 6 months ago, Natasa was an English teacher at Sarajevo University. It was an important job, and she was happy. One of her happiest memories is of her time in England on a language teaching course in Cambridge. These days, Natasa sits in a flat with broken glass in the windows and no heating. There is hardly any water to wash the dishes and the clothes. She doesn't have much food, and she gives most of it to her children. It's cold at night. Sometimes she thinks she can't go on, but she's a mother. Natasa is a Bosnian Serb. Her husband Emir was a Croat. They lived together in peace. It wasn't much to ask, surely. But this is war, and war is murder. And this is what war does to families. Chapter 7. An Invitation. When Katy got out of bed and drew back the curtains the next morning, she found herself looking at steady rain. Against the heavy grey sky, she could see flashes of gunfire and the occasional puff of smoke. But neither the rain nor the sounds of war could completely destroy her feeling of satisfaction. As she was brushing her teeth, she thought of the 2 emails she'd received last night. They'd been waiting for her when she sent her article about Natasa and her family back to the Daily Witness. The first one was very short. It read, "Liked your article. That's the style to continue with. Hope you're beginning to feel at home. Carol Jones." The second one was longer and made her smile. "It's lonely here without you. I haven't got anyone to talk to. I insist that while you're out there, in the middle of your exciting war, you spare a thought for those of us left behind as slaves to the unforgiving Daily Witness and our terrifying editor. Your friend, boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, came in this morning. He wanted to know how to get in touch with you. I didn't give him your new email address or anything, but he left a letter for you and asked me to send it. Should I have given him your email? Do you want me to send on the letter? Your best answers would be no, and then you can agree to come back to me. I'd be much better for you than he was. Joke. Got to go now. My sister has invited me out. Says she wants me to meet someone interesting. Ouch. Think of me out there. Benjamin. Katy was smiling to herself as she took the lift down to breakfast. Her boss was pleased with her, and Benjamin, well, he was a good friend. Did she want to hear from Paul? Not very much. All that, her past life seemed unimportant to her now, even though it was very recent. When she thought of Paul, or her home, or her mother, they all seemed to be from way back in the past, somewhere far away. Here was important now. Sarajevo, Serbs, Bosnians, Carla, Harris, the people she'd met yesterday. She walked into the dining room and the first person she saw was Colin Northcott, sitting at a table right next to the entrance. She suddenly remembered the one thing she wasn't very happy about. Although Carla had tried to persuade her that he was a nice guy, really, she felt embarrassed when she thought of his opinion of her. He looked up as he heard her come in, and for a second their eyes met before she looked away. If she'd continued to look at him, she might have seen something like a smile cross his face, followed by a hint of regret. But she moved on and found herself at a table as far away as she could. She needn't have bothered. He came over to her as she was pouring her second cup of coffee. He seemed embarrassed. "Good morning," he said uncomfortably. "I hope you're getting on all right." "Yes, thank you." After their last conversation, she was going to make him do all the work. Good. There was a pause while he stood there. Katy added sugar to her coffee and stirred it in. "You spent the day with Carla yesterday," Colin said. "Yes," Katy replied. "She told me off. Gave me a piece of her mind, you might say," he went on. "Did she?" Katy asked. "Yes." Colin paused again. He cleared his throat. "Look, I feel a bit stupid standing here. Do you mind if I sit down?" "Suit yourself." Katy knew she was being rude, but she couldn't resist it. It felt good. "Thanks." He called the waitress over and asked for more coffee. "If you don't mind," he said to Katy. "No, why should I?" she answered. "I can think of a number of reasons, actually," he said. "I can think of a couple myself." She couldn't help smiling. He was trying so hard. And he looked better in the morning light. There was a silence. You didn't come to the bar last night, he started. No, she interrupted. I went up to my room. Had an early night. The last couple of days have been quite busy. It's like that at first. He didn't sound rude or angry now. He was clearly trying to be friendly. But you have to pace yourself. You really do, he went on uncomfortably. I've been in this business a long time. Well, it seems like a long time anyway. Sometimes it gets too much and I say the wrong things. Like I did to you the night before last. Carla says I did anyway. She says I was quite rude to you. Do you think I was? Now it was Katy's turn to feel uncomfortable. She wasn't sure what to say or why Colin had come to talk to her. She decided on honesty. Yes, she said. I think you were. You know, he said, I'd like to forget our last conversation if you don't mind. You write whatever you want to write. Well, thanks. I'm glad I've got your permission, Katy said. All right. I deserved that. But if I agree not to tell you how to do your job all the time, can we start again? He asked. Of course, only... She stopped because she wasn't quite sure what she wanted, but she knew she wanted something. Only what? He asked. Only... Yes, now she had it. Only you have to agree to give me advice if and when I need it, she said. Of course. He looked relieved. Now look, he went on. By way of apology, do you like music? Depends what kind, she said. That's a bit difficult to say. Jazz? Rock? A bit of classical? That kind of thing? Sure. I mean, that's about all the music there is. She was enjoying herself again. Okay then, Colin said. Why don't you come along with us tonight and we'll show you a very different side of Sarajevo and the people who live here. It'll cheer you up. Who's us? She asked. Me and Carla. We're just good friends, he added, seeing the look on Katy's face. All right, she said, getting up from the table. All right, thank you. I will.